The stars looked different in this part of space. Captain Veltar pressed his long, pale fingers against the viewing window of the Coalition ship Harmony's Edge. His kind, the Ethereals, had been exploring the galaxy for over 3,000 years, but this region still felt strange and empty. "Captain," called Dr. Nixara from her station. Her blue skin shimmered under the bridge lights as she turned to face him. "We're picking up something unusual on the scanners." Veltar moved away from the window with his usual smooth steps. The Ethereals were tall and thin, almost floating when they walked. "What kind of unusual, Doctor?" "A ship, large one. It's just sitting there in space." Nixara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence as she studied her readings. "No power signatures that I can detect. No movement. It looks dead." The third member of their exploration team, Engineer Kolvas, looked up from his console. The builders were short and strong, with thick arms and gray, rocky skin. "Dead ships can be dangerous, Captain. Could be a trap." Veltar considered this. The Coalition had rules about investigating unknown vessels, but they were explorers. It was their job to learn about new things. "Put it on the main screen." The image that appeared made all 3 of them stop and stare. The ship was massive, easily twice the size of their own vessel. It was dark gray with sharp angles and heavy armor plating. Even floating dead in space, it looked dangerous by the stars, whispered Nixara. "Look at those weapon systems." The ship bristled with gun turrets and missile pods. Veltar had never seen anything like it. Coalition ships were built for exploration and peaceful contact. This thing was built for war. "Can you read any markings?" he asked. Nixara adjusted her scanner. "Yes. It says UES Iron Resolve on the side. And there's another marking. Earth." The 3 Coalition members looked at each other. They had heard stories about Earth and its people. The humans were supposed to be a young species, barely out of their home system. The report said they were violent and aggressive, always fighting wars. "So this is a human ship," Kolva said slowly. "First one we've actually seen." "The intelligence report said they were primitive," Veltar said, but he was looking at the weapons on the ship. "Nothing about this vessel looked primitive. Should we contact Coalition Command?" Nixara asked. Veltar thought about it. They were 3 months away from the nearest Coalition base. Any message would take weeks to reach Command and weeks more for a reply. "No, we're explorers. This is what we do." He moved to his captain's chair. It was smaller and more elegant than anything on the human ship. "Take us closer. Careful scans only. I want to know everything about that ship." As they approached, more details became clear. The human ship showed signs of battle damage. Scorch marks covered sections of the hull. Several areas looked like they had been repaired quickly, with metal patches welded over holes. "Life signs?" Veltar asked. "None," Nixara replied. "The ship is completely empty." "But Captain, some of the systems are still running. Artificial gravity is active. Emergency power is on." "How is that possible if the crew is gone?" "I don't know. Human technology is different from ours. Maybe their systems are more automated." Kolvas was studying his engineering readings. The ship took heavy damage, but it's still mostly intact. Whatever happened here, it happened months ago. Maybe longer. Veltar made his decision. "We're going aboard." "Captain," Kolvas said carefully, "the regulations say we should wait for a full investigation team before boarding an unknown vessel. The regulations also say we should learn about new species and their technology. This is our chance to understand humans better." Veltar stood up. "Prepare the boarding suits." An hour later, the 3 Coalition members stood in the airlock of their own ship, wearing full environmental suits. They had never met humans in person, so they didn't know if the air would be safe to breathe. "Remember," Veltar said over the communication system, "we're here to observe and learn. Touch nothing unless necessary. Record everything." The airlock of the human ship was enormous. It could easily fit 20 Coalition members. Everything about the ship seemed built for larger beings. "The humans must be giants," Nixara whispered as they cycled through the airlock. The inner door opened with a soft hiss. Emergency lighting cast red shadows down a long corridor. The gravity felt heavy, much stronger than what the Coalition used on their ships. "The air is breathable," Kolvas reported, checking his readings. "Oxygen and nitrogen mix similar to what we use. Temperature is comfortable." They removed their helmets but kept the rest of their suits on. The corridor stretched away in both directions, much wider than needed for normal foot traffic. "Which way?" Nixara asked. "The bridge should be forward," Veltar decided. Let's see how humans command their ships. They walked slowly down the corridor, their footsteps echoing in the empty space. Doors lined both sides, most of them closed. The walls were painted a neutral gray color, with yellow safety stripes marking important areas. "Look at this," Kulva said, stopping at what looked like a damage control station. "They have manual overrides for everything. No automation at all for critical systems." "Maybe they don't trust their computers," Nixara suggested. "Or maybe they're prepared for their computers to fail in battle," Veltar said. The thought made him uncomfortable. Coalition ships rarely saw combat, and when they did, it was brief and mostly defensive. They reached a wide intersection where several corridors met. Signs on the wall pointed in different directions, written in human language. None of them could read the symbols, but there were simple pictures too. An arrow pointing up with a picture of what looked like a command chair. "The bridge is above us," Veltar said. They found a lift that was large enough to hold 20 people. As it carried them upward, Nixara checked her scanner again. "I'm picking up power signatures from multiple sections of the ship. Whatever happened here, the humans left a lot of systems running." "Maybe they expected to come back," Kulva said. The lift stopped, and the doors opened onto the bridge of the human warship. All 3 coalition members stepped out and stopped, staring at what they saw. The bridge was huge, easily 10 times the size of their own command center. Multiple levels connected by stairs and ramps gave different crew members different views of the space around them. Large screens covered the walls, most of them dark now but still showing basic information. "By the void," Veltar breathed. "How many people did it take to run this ship?" In the center of the bridge sat the captain's chair, and it was massive, built for someone much larger than any of the coalition species. Around it, other stations spread out in a careful pattern. Each station had multiple screens and hundreds of controls. Nixara moved to what looked like a science station. The interfaces are simple but effective. Everything is labeled clearly. They built this for people to use under stress. Kulvas was examining the engineering station. "These damage control systems are incredible. They can reroute power, seal hull breaches, even rebuild entire sections while the ship is in battle." Veltar approached the weapons console and immediately wished he hadn't. The display showed targeting systems for dozens of different weapon types. Missiles, energy beams, projectile cannons, and things he couldn't identify. Each weapon had enough power to destroy a coalition ship with a single shot. "Captain," Nixara called from her station, "I found something. Battle logs, and they're recent." "How recent?" 6 months ago. The ship was in combat with multiple hostile vessels." She paused, reading more. 12 enemy ships, Captain. This one human ship fought 12 others. "And?" Veltar asked, though he already suspected the answer. "They won. The human ship defeated all 12 attackers." The 3 coalition members stood in silence, looking around the bridge with new understanding. This wasn't just a warship. It was a weapon of incredible power, operated by beings they didn't understand. "We need to learn more," Veltar said finally. "Check the crew quarters. Look for personal records, anything that can tell us about the people who lived on this ship." As they prepared to explore deeper into the vessel, none of them noticed the small recording device that had activated when they entered the bridge. Somewhere in the ship's memory banks, their words and actions were being carefully documented. The human ship had many secrets left to discover. The crew quarters deck felt different from the bridge. Where the command center had been all business and efficiency, this area felt more personal. The corridors were still wide and built for large beings, but the lighting was softer here, more comfortable. The humans lived here for months, maybe years, Dr. Nixara said as they walked down the main hallway. "Look at these doors. Each one is a private room." Captain Veltar counted the doors as they passed. 20, 30, 40 rooms just on this section. "How big was this crew?" Engineer Kulvis checked his scanner. "I'm reading over 200 individual quarters on this deck alone. And there are 3 more crew decks below us." The numbers made Veltar uncomfortable. Coalition ships typically carried crews of 50 to 100. This human vessel had space for over 800 people. What kind of species needed so many individuals to operate one ship? They stopped at the first door they came to. A small nameplate next to it read, Sergeant Park Min Ho, in human writing, with symbols below it that none of them could understand. "Should we go in?" Nixara asked. "We need to learn about them," Veltar decided. "But be respectful. These were someone's private spaces." The door opened easily when Kulvis touched the control panel. Inside was a room about twice the size of a coalition crew quarter. A large bed dominated one wall, built for someone much taller and broader than any of them. A desk sat against the opposite wall, covered with personal items. "Look at this," Nixara whispered, moving to the desk. Pictures covered the surface, held in small frames. The images showed humans, and seeing them for the first time was shocking. They were indeed large, much bigger than any coalition species. But their faces showed emotions that were easy to understand. "Joy, love, happiness. This one shows a family," Nixara said, holding up a picture. 2 adults and 3 smaller ones. "Children, I think." The adults in the picture had their arms around each other, and the children, all of them were smiling. It was a picture of pure happiness. "The intelligence report said humans were violent and aggressive," Kolva said slowly. "This doesn't look violent." Veltar picked up another picture. This one showed the same adult male in some kind of uniform, standing with a group of other humans. They all wore the same clothes and had serious expressions, but there was something in their eyes. Trust, maybe. Brotherhood. They form strong social bonds, he observed. "Look at how they stand together." On the wall next to the bed hung several pieces of paper covered in colorful marks. They looked like artwork, but the style was simple and childish. "The children made these for him," Nixara said, examining the drawings. "See? This one shows the family standing in front of a building. And this one has words written in human language." One drawing showed stick figures holding hands under a yellow circle that was probably meant to be a sun. At the bottom, someone had written, "I love you, Daddy," in shaky letters. The 3 coalition members stood in silence, looking at the simple drawing. Each of them was thinking the same thing, but none wanted to say it. This Sergeant Park Minho had been a father. He had children who loved him and made him pictures. He had carried those pictures into space, into battle, into danger. "We should look at more rooms," Veltar said finally. The next room belonged to someone called Dr. Han So-young. It was larger than the first, with medical equipment and books covering every surface. The bed was smaller, built for someone not quite as large as the sergeant. "A female," Nixara said, studying a picture on the desk, "and a doctor from the look of this equipment." This room felt different. More organized, more professional, but there were still personal touches. More pictures of humans. Some showing the doctor with groups of people in medical uniforms. Others showed her with what looked like patients, all of them smiling. She kept pictures of the people she helped, Kolvis noticed. "Look, this one shows her with a child who appears to be injured, but they're both smiling." A book lay open on the desk, filled with handwritten notes in human language. The pictures in the book showed different species, including some that looked like coalition members. She was studying alien anatomy, Nixara realized. "This book has drawings of ethereals, builders, even some species I don't recognize. Why would a human doctor study alien medicine?" Veltar wondered. They found their answer in the next room, which belonged to Chief Engineer Choi Jae-wook. This quarters was filled with technical manuals and computer equipment, but what caught their attention were the translation devices scattered around the room. "He was learning our languages," Kolvas said, picking up a device that was still powered on. When he activated it, it spoke in perfect coalition standard language. "Greetings. I am Engineer Choi. How may I assist you?" "They were preparing for contact with us," Veltar said, the realization hitting him. They knew they might meet coalition species, so they were learning about us. More evidence of this was everywhere in the room. Star charts showing coalition space, cultural guides describing ethereal and builder customs, even what looked like cooking instructions for foods that coalition species could eat. "Look at this," Nixara called from the engineer's desk. She was holding a notebook filled with detailed drawings of coalition technology. He figured out how our ships work just by observing them. The drawings were incredibly detailed and accurate. The human engineer had somehow learned to understand coalition technology well enough to improve upon it. Several pages showed modifications that would make coalition ships faster, stronger, more efficient. "This is impossible," Kolva said, studying the designs. "It would take our best engineers years to develop improvements like these. How did one human do it so quickly?" They left the engineer's room and continued down the corridor, but each new discovery only raised more questions. The room belonging to Pilot Oh Dong-wook contained flight manuals for dozens of different ship types, including coalition vessels. The quarters of Communications Officer Lim Yunji had language learning materials for over 20 different alien languages. They were preparing for peace, Veltar said as they stood in the communications officer's room. All of this, the language studies, the cultural guides, the medical research, they wanted to understand us, but why? Nixera asked. The report said they were warlike and aggressive. Maybe the reports were wrong, Kolva suggested quietly. They made their way to the ship's medical bay, following signs on the walls. The medical center was enormous, easily able to treat hundreds of patients at once. But what impressed them most were the modifications that had been made to the standard equipment. Look at these beds, Nixara said, running her hands over the medical tables. They've been adjusted to accommodate different body types. Ethereal physiology, builder anatomy, even species I don't recognize. The humans modified their medical bay to treat aliens, Veltar realized. They expected to have non-human patients. Computer terminals throughout. The medical bay contained detailed files on coalition anatomy and physiology. Dr. Han So-young had clearly spent months studying how to treat injuries and illnesses in different species. This is a database of coalition medical conditions, Nixara said, accessing one of the computers. Symptoms, treatments, medication dosages. It's incredibly complete. More complete than what most coalition doctors know, Kolvas admitted. They found personal logs from Dr. Han So-young stored in the medical computer. The entries were in human language, but the translation software was good enough to give them the basic meaning. Day 47, the computer read in its artificial voice. Completed study of ethereal cardiovascular system. Their hearts are more efficient than human hearts, but more vulnerable to electrical disruption. Note: prepare specialized defibrillation equipment. Day 62. Builder physiology fascinating. Their rocky skin provides natural armor, but their joints are vulnerable points. Remember, never use standard human painkillers on builders. Their metabolism processes drugs differently. Day 91. Received new data on crystalline species from deep space communications. Their biology is unlike anything we've encountered. We'll need to completely redesign surgical procedures if we ever treat one of them. Entry after entry showed the human doctor working to understand alien biology, not to harm it, but to heal it. She had spent months preparing to save coalition lives. The workshops, Kolva said suddenly. We need to see the engineering workshops. They made their way to the engineering section of the ship, where Chief Engineer Choi Jae-wook had worked. The workshops were massive, filled with tools and equipment that none of them recognized. But scattered throughout were devices that were clearly coalition technology, carefully disassembled and studied. He wasn't trying to copy our technology, Kolvas realized as he examined the workbenches. He was trying to improve it. Detailed notes covered every surface, showing how coalition systems could be made more efficient, more reliable, more powerful. But every modification was designed to help, not harm. Look at this, Veltar called from across the workshop. He was standing next to a device that looked like a coalition emergency beacon, but modified with human technology. It's a rescue beacon, Kolvas said, examining the device, but it's been improved. Stronger signal, longer range, more reliable power source. Why would they improve our rescue beacons? Nixera asked. The main computer core was located deep in the heart of the ship. Captain Veltar and his team had to travel down several levels through corridors that grew quieter and more empty with each step. The emergency lighting cast long shadows that seemed to follow them as they walked. The computer should have all the ship's records, Dr. Nixara said as they approached the massive doors that led to the core. Mission logs, personal files, battle records. Are we sure we want to know? Engineer Kolvas asked quietly. What if we find something we don't want to see? Veltar paused at the entrance. He had been thinking the same thing. Everything they had found so far painted humans in a completely different light than the intelligence reports. But those reports had come from somewhere. There had to be a reason why the coalition believed humans were dangerous. We're explorers, he said finally. We need to know the truth. The computer core was enormous, taking up an entire room the size of their ship's bridge. Banks of processors hummed quietly, their lights blinking in steady patterns. In the center of the room sat a single console with multiple screens. It's still active, Nixara observed, checking her scanner. The main systems are powered down, but the core memory banks are intact. Kolvas approached the console carefully. The interface looks simple enough. Just like everything else on this ship, it's designed for people to use under pressure. He activated the main screen and immediately human text appeared. The translation software began working, converting the symbols into Coalition standard language. "Welcome to UES Iron Resolve main computer," the screen read. "Please enter access codes." "We don't have access codes," Veltar said. "Wait," Kolvas said, studying the interface. "Look at this. There's an emergency access protocol for Coalition officials." The screen showed several options, including one labeled Coalition Diplomatic Access. When Kolvas selected it, new text appeared. "Greetings, Coalition representatives. This access level has been prepared for you in the hope that we may one day work together in peace. Please review our records and understand that humanity wishes only friendship with the Coalition." The three aliens looked at each other in amazement. The humans had built special access codes just for Coalition members, hoping that someday they might work together. "Access mission records," Veltar instructed. The screen filled with data. Mission logs, crew reports, and detailed records of the ship's activities. The most recent entries were marked as urgent priority. "Final mission Operation Guardian" appeared at the top of the list. Kolvas selected the file, and immediately video began playing on the screen. It showed a human in a command uniform sitting at what they recognized as the captain's chair on the bridge. The translator identified him as Commander Li Wujin. "Personal log, Commander Li Wujin, Day 1 of Operation Guardian," the human said. His voice was deep and calm, but there was worry in his eyes. "We received a distress signal from Coalition Colony Beta 7. They report they are under attack by unknown hostile forces." The video paused, and text appeared explaining that Coalition Colony Beta 7 was a peaceful research station with 10,000 civilians from 12 different species. "Continue playback," Veltar said. "The Coalition Defense Force is 3 days away from Beta 7, Commander Lee continued. "The colonist will be dead by then. We are the only ship in range that can help." "But sir," came another voice from off-screen, "we're not supposed to interfere in Coalition space. Our orders are to observe only." "Our orders," the commander said firmly, "are to protect innocent life wherever we find it. These people need help, and we're going to give it to them." The video switched to show different parts of the ship. The crew was preparing for battle, but not in the way the Coalition team expected. Instead of focusing only on weapons, they were setting up medical bays and preparing cargo holds to receive refugees. Medical Officer Kang Bo-ram appeared the next video log. It showed a human female in a medical uniform. "We're preparing to receive up to 12,000 Coalition civilians. I've studied the medical needs of all known Coalition species. We're ready to treat any injuries." "But doctor," someone asked, from behind the camera, "what if they're afraid of us? The reports say Coalition species think we're dangerous." Dr. Kang smiled, and it was a warm, gentle expression. "Then we'll just have to show them they're wrong. Actions speak louder than words." The next video showed engineer Choi Jae-wook in his workshop. "I'm modifying our cargo transporters to safely handle Coalition physiology. Their bodies are more delicate than ours, so we need to be extra careful." "How long will the modifications take?" asked the person recording. 6 hours if I work alone, but the whole engineering team is helping. We'll have it done in 2. Video after video showed the human crew preparing not for conquest, but for rescue. They were working frantically to save people they had never met, people from species they had only read about. "Play the battle logs," Veltar requested quietly. The screen showed external camera footage of the Iron Resolve approaching Coalition Colony Beta 7. The space around the colony was filled with ships unlike any in Coalition records. They were dark, angular vessels that moved with predatory grace. "Hostile vessels identified as Ravager Horde," Commander Lee's voice said over the footage. 12 attack ships, heavy assault class. They've already destroyed the colony's defense platforms, the Ravager Horde. Veltar knew that name. Every Coalition species feared the Ravagers. They were raiders who attacked weak targets and disappeared before help could arrive. No one had ever successfully fought them off. "Sir," came Lieutenant Kim Do-yoon's voice over the communication system. "The Ravagers are demanding we leave or they'll destroy us. They say this is their territory now." "Tell them," Commander Lee replied calmly, "that they're in Coalition space, and we're here to protect Coalition citizens. If they want to leave peacefully, they can, but they're not touching those colonists." The external cameras showed the Ravager ships turning toward the Iron Resolve. 12 ships against 1. The Coalition team watched in growing amazement as the human ship didn't retreat. "All stations, battle stations," Commander Lee ordered. "Engineering, I need everything you can give me. Medical, prepare for casualties. Communications, start coordinating the evacuation." "Evacuation?" Nixara whispered. "They're going to fight 12 ships and evacuate civilians at the same time?" The battle footage was incredible. The Iron Resolve moved like nothing the Coalition team had ever seen. Instead of standing still and trading shots like most ships did, it darted between the Ravager vessels, using its speed and maneuverability to avoid their heaviest weapons. "Engineering to bridge," came Engineer Choi's voice. "I've rerouted all non-essential power to weapons and shields. We're running at 120% of normal capacity." "Medical to bridge," Dr. Kang reported. "First group of colonists are aboard. Many injuries, but we're treating them." "How many so far?" Commander Lee asked. 800, sir. But there are still over 9,000 on the colony." The battle continued to rage on the screen. The Iron Resolve was taking heavy damage, but it kept fighting. More importantly, it kept rescuing civilians. Cargo transporter after cargo transporter carried Coalition colonists to safety. "Petty Officer Yoon Tae-hyun to bridge," came another voice. "I'm coordinating the evacuation from the colony surface. The civilians are scared, but they're cooperating." "What are you telling them?" Commander Lee asked. "The truth, sir, that we're humans, and we're here to help." The external cameras showed Ravager ships exploding one by one as the Iron Resolve's weapons found their marks. But the human ship was paying a price. Entire sections were venting atmosphere. Fires burned in multiple compartments. "Engineering to bridge," came Engineer Nam Hye-jin's voice, strained with effort. "The port engine is critical. I can keep it running, but I need to stay here manually." "Negative, Engineer Nam. Evacuate that section." "Sir, if I leave, the engine will fail. We need that engine to outrun the Ravagers when this is over." There was a pause. "Understood, Engineer Nam. Thank you." The Coalition team watched in horror as that section of the ship took a direct hit moments later. Engineer Nam Hye-jin had sacrificed herself to keep the ship running. "Sir," came Lieutenant Kim's voice tight with emotion. "We've lost Nam, but the engine is still running." "She saved us all," Commander Lee said quietly. "Continue the evacuation." The rescue continued. Thousand after thousand of Coalition civilians were brought aboard the Iron Resolve. The cargo holds were packed beyond capacity, but still the humans kept working. "Medical to bridge," Dr. Kang reported. "We have 10,000 souls aboard, sir. Every Coalition civilian from the colony." "Confirmed," came Communications Officer Lim's voice. "Colony Beta 7 is empty. All civilians are safe." The external cameras showed only 3 Ravager ships remaining, but they were the largest and most powerful ones. The Iron Resolve was heavily damaged, barely able to maneuver. "Sir," Lieutenant Kim said, "the Ravagers are forming up for a final attack. Our shields are down to 15%. Commander Lee was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady and calm. "Set course for Coalition space, maximum speed." "Sir, the civilians will be safe," Commander Lee finished. "That's what matters." Captain Veltar stared at the dark computer screen for a long time after the video logs ended. The silence in the room felt heavy, filled with questions that none of them wanted to ask. "But if they saved everyone," Dr. Nixara finally whispered, "then where is the crew? Where are the humans?" Engineer Kolvas was already working at the computer console, searching through more files. "There have to be more records. Emergency logs, evacuation procedures, something." "Here," he said after a few minutes. "Escape pod launch records." The screen filled with data showing the locations of every escape pod on the ship. 48 pods total, each one designed to carry 20 people to safety. All pods were launched, Kolvas read. But look at the destinations. A star map appeared showing the trajectory of each escape pod. Every single one was headed toward Coalition space, not toward Earth or any human colony. They sent all the civilians to safety, Veltar realized. But what about their own crew? Look at the launch times, Nixara said, studying the data. The pods launched over a 6-hour period. That matches what Commander Lee said in his final log. They were making sure the Coalition civilians reach safety. But there should be more pods, Kolvas said, checking his numbers again. This ship had a crew of over 800 people. These pods could only carry about 1,000 total, and they were all filled with civilians. The horrible truth was becoming clear. The humans had used all their escape pods to save Coalition civilians. They had saved every single alien life, but they had no way to save themselves. Emergency crew pods, Veltar said suddenly. Military ships have emergency evacuation systems for the crew. Kolvas searched the computer again. Found them. 20 emergency crew pods, designed for the command staff and essential personnel. The escape pod records showed that these pods had also been launched, but much later than the civilian evacuations. Their destination was also Coalition space. They could have saved themselves first, Nixara said quietly. They could have evacuated their own crew and left the civilians. But they didn't, Veltar said. They saved everyone else first. Captain, Kolvas said, his voice strange. Look at the crew pod passenger lists. The screen showed the names of everyone who had escaped in the emergency pods. But the list was much shorter than it should have been. Only about 200 names appeared. Where are the others? Nixara asked. Look at the launch authorization codes, Kolvas said. These pods were launched by the senior staff, but the senior staff aren't on the passenger lists. Commander Lee Woo-jin's name was not on any escape pod. Neither was Lieutenant Kim Da-yoon, or Chief Engineer Choi Jae-wook, or any of the senior officers they had learned about. They stayed behind, Veltar said, understanding flooding through him. The senior staff stayed on the ship. But why? Nixara asked. The civilians were safe. The mission was complete. Kolvas found the answer in the ship's final sensor logs. The Ravager ships were still following the escape pods. 3 heavy cruisers gaining ground. The humans realized that even in escape pods, the Coalition civilians weren't safe, Veltar said. The Ravagers would catch them. So they stayed, Nixara whispered. They stayed to fight. The final battle logs were stored in a separate file marked Operation Final Stand. Commander Lee had recorded everything, knowing that someday someone might need to understand what had happened. Personal log. Commander Lee Woo-jin, his voice said from the computer speakers. The civilian evacuation is complete. All 10,000 Coalition citizens are safely away in escape pods. Most of my crew has also escaped in the emergency pods. His voice was calm but tired. However, the Ravager pursuit ships are still following the escape pods. They will catch our people within 12 hours and destroy them. There was a pause, and when he spoke again, his voice was firm with resolve. I am remaining aboard the Iron Resolve with 60 volunteer crew members. We are going to ensure that the escape pods reach Coalition space safely. 60 volunteers, Kolva said. Out of 800 crew members, 60 chose to stay and die. No, Veltar corrected. 60 chose to stay and save lives. The computer continued playing the final logs. Other voices joined Commander Lee's, all volunteers who had stayed behind. Engineering log, Chief Engineer Choi Jae-wook. I've rerouted all remaining power to the engines and weapons. We can give the ship one last fight. Medical log, Dr. Kang Borum. All Coalition civilians have been treated and are stable for the journey to safety. I'm remaining aboard to treat any injured crew members during the final battle. Communications log, Officer Lim Yoonji. I've programmed a message for the Coalition government. If anyone finds this ship, they'll understand that humanity wanted only peace. Each log was short and professional, but the emotion behind them was clear. These people knew they were going to die, but they were focused on saving others. Tactical log, Lieutenant Kim Da-eun. We've modified the ship's remaining weapons for maximum effect. We might not survive, but we'll take some Ravagers with us. Navigation log, Pilot Oh Dong-wook. I've plotted a course that will keep us between the Ravagers and the escape pods. We'll buy our people as much time as possible. The sensor log showed what happened next. The Iron Resolve, badly damaged and running on emergency power, had turned to face the 3 pursuing Ravager ships. The human vessel was outgunned and outnumbered, but it fought anyway. "We can't win this fight," Commander Lee's voice said in his final log. "But we don't need to win. We just need to delay them long enough for the escape pods to reach Coalition space." The battle lasted 4 hours. The Iron Resolve used every trick it could, hiding in asteroid fields, using debris as cover, striking and running. Slowly, systematically, the human crew destroyed one Ravager ship, then another. 2 down, Lieutenant Kim reported in the logs. "But we've lost life support on most decks. Hull breaches on 12 levels. How long can we keep this up?" Commander Lee asked. "Maybe an hour, sir. After that, the ship will break apart. That's enough. The escape pods will be in Coalition space in 50 minutes. The final Ravager ship was the largest and most powerful. It cornered the Iron Resolve in an empty section of space, far from any cover. "This is it," Commander Lee said in his last log entry. "We've given our people enough time. The civilians are safe." There was a pause, and then his voice continued, softer now. "To whoever finds this ship, know that we died doing what humans do best. We protected those who couldn't protect themselves. We gave our lives so that 10,000 innocent people could live. Tell Earth that we were proud to serve. Tell the Coalition that we wanted to be their friends." The log ended with the sound of explosions and the screech of tearing metal. The 3 Coalition members stood in the computer room, overwhelmed by what they had learned. The sensor logs showed that the Iron Resolve had destroyed the final Ravager ship, but the explosion had crippled the human vessel. It had drifted in space for months before they found it. "They won," Nixara said quietly. "They saved everyone and won the battle, but they paid with their lives," Colvis added. Veltar was accessing more files, looking for personal messages that the crew might have left behind. What he found made his heart ache. "Look at this," he said. "Personal messages to their families." The screen filled with video messages that the crew had recorded before the final battle. Message after message from humans saying goodbye to their loved ones. "To my wife and children," Pilot Odongwook said in his message. "I'm sorry I won't be coming home. But I want you to know that what we did here was important. We saved 10,000 lives. I hope that makes you proud." "To my parents," Communications Officer Lim Yunji said in hers. "I love you both so much. Please don't be sad for too long. We did something good here. We showed the galaxy that humans can be heroes." "To Earth Command," Chief Engineer Choi said in his formal message. "Recommend immediate diplomatic contact with the Coalition. These people are good. They deserve our friendship and protection." Message after message showed humans who knew they were about to die, but who were thinking about others. They worried about their families, but they were proud of what they had accomplished. "Dr. Kang's message," Nixara said, accessing another file. "Listen to this. To my sister, who always said I was too soft to be a military doctor," Dr. Kang said, smiling despite the explosions happening around her. "I treated 12 species today. I saved lives that I had only read about in books. It was the best day of my medical career. To the Coalition medical community, if you ever receive this message, your people are brave and strong. It was an honor to help them." The final message was from Commander Lee himself, addressed not to his family, but to the Coalition government. "To the leaders of the Galactic Coalition," he said, sitting in his damaged command chair. "My name is Commander Lee Woo-jin of the Earthship Iron Resolve. We came to your space not as conquerors, but as friends. We saved your people because it was the right thing to do. We died protecting them because that's what friends do for each other. I hope that someday our species can work together in peace. Humanity has much to offer the galaxy, and much to learn from you. Remember us not as the violent species your reports described, but as people who gave everything to save strangers." The message ended, and the computer room fell silent again. Captain Veltar walked through the corridors of the Iron Resolve one last time before they left. Everything looked different now. The wide hallways that had seemed built for giants now felt like they had been designed for protectors. The heavy blast doors that had looked threatening were actually meant to keep danger out, not to keep anyone trapped inside. "Captain," Dr. Nixara called from ahead. "You need to see this." She was standing in the central corridor of the crew deck in front of a wall that they had walked past several times without really noticing. Now in the better light they had set up, they could see what was actually there. "It's a memorial wall," Nixara said softly. The entire wall was covered with photographs and names, thousands of them. But these weren't pictures of humans. These were pictures of Coalition citizens. Men, women, children, elderly beings from a dozen different species. Each photo had a name written below it in careful human handwriting. These are the people they saved, Engineer Kolvas realized, approaching the wall, all 10,000 of them. But it was more than just names and pictures. Next to each photo, someone had written personal details. Zethara, age 7, likes drawing pictures of stars. Dr. Quintel, researcher studying plant genetics. Elder Morvak, grandfather of 6, plays musical instrument called a flute. They learned about every single person they rescued, Veltar said, reading entry after entry. Look at this one. Kira Nesh, pregnant with first child due in 3 months. They even noted personal details about individual lives. Nixara was studying a section of the wall dedicated to children. Dozens of photos showed young coalition citizens of various species, all with detailed notes. This child was scared during the evacuation, so Dr. Kang gave her a stuffed animal from the ship's gift shop. This boy was injured but insisted on walking to the escape pod so others could use the medical stretcher. They cared about each person individually, Kolvas said in amazement. This wasn't just a rescue mission to them. These were 10,000 individuals, each one important. At the bottom of the memorial wall, someone had written a message in large, clear letters. Never forgotten, you are all safe now, your lives matter. The crew of UES Iron Resolve. Veltar had to turn away from the wall. The emotion was too much. Everything they had believed about humans was not just wrong, it was the complete opposite of the truth. Captain, Nixara said, her voice strange. There's something else. She was looking at a smaller section of the wall separate from the rest. This area had photos of humans, but they weren't crew members. These were pictures of human families. These are the families of the crew who died, she said. Look at the note. Below the pictures, someone had written, "To the families of our crew, your loved ones died as heroes. They saved 10,000 lives. Please know that their sacrifice meant everything to the people they protected. They will be remembered forever. Coalition survivors of Beta 7 colony." The Coalition civilians wrote this, Veltar realized. After they were rescued, they somehow got a message back to this ship. More messages were scattered around this section of the wall, all from Coalition survivors thanking the human crew. "Thank you for saving my children. Your people are heroes. We will never forget what you did for us." The survivors made it to Coalition space, Kolvas said. They were rescued and they tried to tell the galaxy what really happened here. But even more revealing was what they found in the ship's communication logs. Messages from Coalition Command, sent months after the rescue, trying to contact the Iron Resolve. Urgent priority message to UES Iron Resolve. One transmission read, "Coalition survivors report your crew saved 10,000 lives at Colony Beta 7. Request immediate contact for formal thanks and diplomatic discussions." Message to Commander Li Wu-jin. Read another, "Coalition High Council unanimously votes to offer Earth full membership in Galactic Coalition. Your actions have shown that humanity deserves honored place among civilized species. Emergency transmission to UES Iron Resolve." Read the final message. "Multiple Coalition species volunteering to send rescue ships to your location. Please respond with coordinates. The galaxy owes you a debt that can never be repaid." The 3 Coalition members stood in the corridor, surrounded by evidence of their government's desperate attempts to contact and thank the human ship. But the Iron Resolve had been floating dead in space, its crew already heroes and martyrs. "They tried to contact them," Nixara said. "The Coalition tried to thank them, tried to rescue them, tried to offer them friendship. But it was too late," Veltar said. The humans had already given everything. They made their way back to the computer core one final time. Veltar wanted to see if there were any other messages, anything else that could help him understand what kind of people these humans really were. What he found was a file marked 4, Coalition Discovery Team. It had been created by Communications Officer Lim Yunji just before the final battle. "If you are reading this," the message began, "then you are probably the first Coalition citizens to board our ship. We hope you are explorers, not enemies. We want you to know that everything we did because we believe in the value of life. All life. Human, Coalition, or any other species we might meet among the stars. Our species is young, and we make mistakes. We have fought wars among ourselves and we are not perfect. But we are learning. We are growing, and we want to be better. We hope that when you judge humanity, you will judge us not by our worst moments but by our best ones. We hope you will remember that when it mattered most, when innocent lives were in danger, humans stood up and fought to protect them. We are not asking for forgiveness for our past mistakes. We are asking for a chance to prove that we can be worthy friends and allies. The Coalition represents everything we hope humanity can become. Peaceful cooperation between different species, working together to explore and understand the universe. We want to be part of that dream. If our sacrifice here helps build a bridge between our peoples, then we are proud to have given our lives for such a cause. Remember, us as we truly were, people who wanted nothing more than to save lives and make friends among the stars. The message was signed by every crew member who had stayed behind to fight the final battle. Veltar saved the message to his personal datapad and then began preparing his own report. As the senior Coalition officer present, it would be his job to explain to Coalition Command what they had found on the Iron Resolve. Personal log. Captain Veltar of the CDS Harmony's Edge, he began recording. We have completed our investigation of the human vessel UES Iron Resolve. Our findings completely contradict all previous intelligence reports about the human species. The crew of this vessel sacrificed their lives to save 10,000 Coalition civilians from the Ravager horde. They had no obligation to help us. They gained nothing from their actions except the knowledge that they had saved innocent lives. Every piece of evidence we found shows that humans were preparing for peaceful contact with Coalition species. They studied our languages, our cultures, our biology. They wanted to be our friends, not our enemies. I am recommending immediate diplomatic contact with Earth. I am also recommending that the Iron Resolve be towed to Coalition space and turned into a memorial to interspecies cooperation. But most importantly, I am recommending that we fundamentally change how we think about humanity. These are not the primitive warmongers described in our intelligence reports. These are people capable of extraordinary courage, compassion, and sacrifice. The crew of the Iron Resolve has taught us what it truly means to be civilized. It is not about having advanced technology or peaceful societies. It is about being willing to sacrifice for strangers. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. We have been wrong about humanity, completely, utterly wrong, and we need to make it right. Veltar finished his report and looked around the computer core one last time. Soon they would leave this ship and return to Coalition space. But the story of the Iron Resolve would not end here. Captain, Nixara said, what do we do now? Now, Veltar said, we go home and tell the truth. We tell the galaxy about the real humans, about people who gave everything to save strangers. Do you think it will make a difference? Colvis asked. It has to, Veltar replied. The crew of this ship died believing that someday, humans and the Coalition could be friends. The least we can do is make sure their sacrifice means something, as they prepared to leave the Iron Resolve. Veltar sent one final message to Coalition Command. Urgent priority transmission. Send diplomatic ships to Earth immediately. Tell them the Iron Resolve sent us. Tell them their heroes are not forgotten. Tell them the Coalition wants them to come home. 6 months later, human ships arrived at Coalition headquarters. They came in peace, carrying representatives who wanted nothing more than to build friendships among the stars. They were welcomed as heroes, as the species that had taught the galaxy what true courage meant. The Iron Resolve was indeed turned into a memorial, placed in orbit around Coalition capital, where millions of beings could visit and remember. On the memorial plaque, visitors could read the words that Commander Li Wujin had spoken in his final message. Remember us not as the violent species your reports described, but as people who gave everything